Good evening and welcome to the FOF session for today. Before we start, please take a note of the two forthcoming FOFs. So there's a date change importantly. So if you have marked your calendars, please modify the November entry. Ronak was quite confident that he will hold fort against the World Cup semi-finals and people will still come to watch him and will not watch the cricket match. But we were not so sure, so we have shifted the date. So in November, Ronak will be presenting, which will be essentially the part 2 of what I'm going to talk about. So my talk today is largely a trailer. Main thing will be spoken by Ronak in the November FOF. That's on 23rd November. And 14th December, Thursday, is the December session. I don't see too many people who would have attended either the Flame session or the TIA session or CFA Society session in Kolkata. But if you have, then this is largely going to be a repetition. And even for the online audience, if you are logging in and if you have attended either of these three events, then there's nothing new that you will learn from this session because essentially it's the same presentation. But that would be a very small portion of the audience since these were non-recorded events, Flame, TIA as well as the CFA Society. So this is for the FOF audience here or for the online audience that watches us. And this is the topic that I'm going to be talking about, and it's been in the media for a long time now, and all of you would have your own impressions of what AI is about, what are the AI potential down the road. So many a times when people talk about AI, I feel that it's almost like the blind men and the elephant because people are talking about different things when they are talking about the same title, which is artificial intelligence. People come from different viewpoints and essentially there is very little agreement on what it really is. Let's get some of the things out of the way at the beginning itself. So you would have this question, right? What is a person who is a commerce graduate who did chartered accountancy and who's in the investment field talking about AI? We should ideally have had some computer science professor here talking about this, or someone who's either working in OpenAI or Microsoft or Google talk about this. Why do you have a layperson talking about artificial intelligence? So one is if you actually had those people coming here and talk, largely the talk would be too technical, and that is not what we are trying to do. This is a Homer Simpson version of AI in that sense. We are interested in what are the implications, how do you apply what all these wonderful computer scientists and statisticians and AI developers have generated for us, have created for us. So it's an accessible layperson approach to AI. However, I would like to acknowledge a few people. So I have benefited greatly from the Coursera course that the person on the right, to your left rather, Andrew Wang, who runs this very popular Coursera course on artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that was way back, but since then a lot of developments have happened, and the person to your extreme right is Pranesh, who is currently working with Google and has good amount of understanding of the subject. So he has been giving us pointers in terms of accessible material to read and generally blog posts that he has come across and things like that. And he is very, very shy, so he typically doesn't speak too much in public. And in any case, there's a big time zone difference. So whatever little I've understood from him, I'm trying to convey it back to other people. We will not get into the typical jargon that gets thrown around whenever we are talking about AI. We will rather look at more simpler concepts. Again, the question will be that this hype cycle happened a few months back when ChatGPT first was released, right? That time people were blown away by the potential of generative AI. And there were headlines, and there were kids trying to do their homework through the use of AI and chatbots. And then colleges were trying to prevent cheating by developing tools which would try and distinguish between humanly written answers and AI generated answers and things like that. So this was a few months back. And today, when you actually look at the traffic to ChatGPT, it is down from the peak levels that it had seen in the past. The hype cycle seems to have died down a bit, and people have gotten used to it. So why are we talking about such a thing today? Let's talk about a very, very different development, not related to artificial intelligence, but uh, something related to machines replacing human labor or manual effort. That was the Industrial Revolution. So, Industrial Revolution, the first part is traditionally understood to have played out between these two years, 1760 to 1840. It was almost a 80-year period. It was not something that happened in 1-2 months and suddenly all the handlooms were replaced by textile mills and things like that. It didn't happen overnight. It took 80 years for just the first phase to be completed in terms of Industrial Revolution. And the interesting thing is that the stock market predates the Industrial Revolution. So in 1611, you already had shares of the Dutch East India Company exchanging hands in Amsterdam. So the traded stock markets were before the Industrial Revolution. Now think about this as a thought experiment. Assume you were a stock market investor in the year 1760. Would you not want to learn about the forthcoming Industrial Revolution that is going to come about and that will change the world as you know it? So, not just the fortunes of individual companies, but the fortunes of various countries changed because of Industrial Revolution. So, for a country like India, which was a big textile exporter in the traditional textiles, from that stage we turned into textile importers. So, all the mills in UK became had all these mechanized mills, and they started exporting cloth to India. Now, if a similar thing is going to happen to the human mind, obviously you would be interested as stock market investors. So what I'm getting to is that the developments in AI today are akin to Industrial Revolution for the human mind. What the Industrial Revolution did for physical labor, this version is doing for the intellectual work that a lot of us do. And this is, don't try to read the text. The title is the main important thing and the author. So, the age of AI has begun. This is a note written by Bill Gates. This was in March 21 of 2023, about 6 months back. Someone who has been closely associated with the computing field thought that AI will take a lot of time till it begins to crack medical entrance exams or those kind of things. But even he was blown away when AI started cracking the biology exams. And this was in a short span of time. So people have really been blown away when they see the developments, and they have started describing the developments in AI as akin to figuring out how to artificially create fire, how to manufacture paper, or the invention of the printing press and things like that. So a lot of people have been comparing AI with some of these significant developments that happened in the past. But at the same time, many times there are things that get hyped up in the field of technology. So about a couple of years back, everyone was saying decentralized finance and how traditional money will go away, and smart contracts and all that. That really hasn't played out that well. And sometimes, so earlier we used to talk about 3D TVs at home. This is almost 20, 30 years back. You would hear about these things happening, but those kind of technologies did not really take off. So where do we fit in AI in this whole scheme of things? Before we actually get into that, let's step back a bit and try and figure out what intelligence is. This is the dictionary definition. The ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Traditional English definition that we think about when we think about intelligence. But let's try and split it further. What differentiates human intelligence as compared to other species, other mammals, or other animal species? So many animals have sight, sound, smell, taste and touch as sensory inputs. Dogs have eyes, cats have eyes, dogs have ears. So these things are not common and are not uncommon in humans. So it's very, very widespread in that sense. A lot of animal species have well-developed memory. One thing people think about is that humans have a very well-developed language. Very rudimentary language is seen in other species as well, but the kind of developed language that humans have, that is not seen commonly across the species. And not only we use language in terms of oral communication, we have the ability to write down things. We have the ability to store language either in the written form or in terms of audio recordings, so that we can transfer language and knowledge across time. So something that was written 100 years back, we can still pick up that book and read it and acquire that knowledge, or we can transmit it across long distances. So if someone is as logged into this stream 1,000 kilometers away, that person can listen to what I am saying right now. So this is something which humans have uniquely developed. Maybe there's something unique about the way we process information. So horses and dogs probably cannot do advanced mathematics or calculus in that sense. So maybe there is some difference here. Consciousness, ego, all this is to some degree found in others as well. And it is said that we have very, very tactile hands which can use very fine tools and create artwork or write in a very good handwriting and things like that. Essentially, these are the inputs, processing and output as they relate to humans. If we go back to the earliest computers, they were nothing but instruction executing machines. Now let's look at this simple example where you have to classify a student as either having passed or as failing in an exam. Simply total up the marks, which is an arithmetic operation for a computer. They can do it very, very precisely without making mistakes. And then they will examine the conditions that you have given. If you have given these conditions, less than 35 is fail, greater than 35 is pass, then the computer will sometimes make an error. What happens if marks are exactly equal to 35? So you have to be very, very precise in terms of the instructions that you give to the computer. They will do this over and over again without making any mistakes and at scale. And if you make a mistake, you can go back and correct the instructions and they will do the correcting on the next iteration. So this is very, very simple. All the banking apps that you have on your phones, for example, those are examples like this. So if you UPI app, let's say you open GPay and you put in the virtual payment address of someone and you transfer 100 rupees, that 100 rupees will be debited from your account and will be credited to the other person's account. This is very simple instruction following. There's nothing intelligent about it. So the computer does not have context of why you are making that payment or whether that payment should be done or not. They are simply instruction following machines. However, things become somewhat more complicated when judgment is involved. Now, as human beings, if we take a very, very quick look at our email inbox, we can quickly figure out whether something is a spam or not. So if someone is claiming to be a Nigerian prince who has inherited $1 million and wants to share that money with you, you quickly realize that it is a fraud. Now just try and think about the instructions that you would give to a computer to classify an email, whether that email is a spam or not. If you say Nigeria, prince, inheritance, if all these three words are there, classify the email as spam. Let us say you put in that filter. Now what happens if some other email comes to your mailbox saying Kenyan prince inheritance? Will that be a spam or not a spam? Now, then it becomes like playing whack-a-mole. You create an instruction for classifying something as spam and the spammer will change the format, or they will deliberately misspell Nigerian. Instead of A, they will put at. So a reader will figure out that this is A, but the computer will not be able to filter it out. So when all of these things start coming in, it's not a matter of simply following instructions. The computer has to arrive at some judgment similar to what human beings do in their day-to-day lives. So that's where statistics start coming into play. Now, a lot of you will have taken a very, very basic class in statistics. If not, then you can probably look this up. But very, very simply, let us say you are trying to predict the marks that a student will get based on the number of hours of studies that that student has done. So, based on this table, you can probably figure out the more the number of hours studied, the more the marks that the student will get. And you will have a graph similar to this line. And although it's not a very, very precise number that you will get, but you can, with some reasonable degree of certainty, predict the marks. So, let us say based on this graph, if someone has studied 8.5 hours, then you can say that person will get somewhere between 85 and 90% marks. And if someone has studied 6.5 hours, then probably the marks will be 60%. So, essentially, you can use large amount of statistics to try and make predictions. And it need not be a straight line. Again, as we all know, no matter how hard you study, you cannot get more than 100% marks. So in real life, probably the line will look something like this. Initially, when you study more, you'll start getting more marks, but later on the extra marks will taper off. So you can have non-linear relationships as well. And you can add lot many more variables, not just the hours, number of hours studied. Let us say you are trying to predict the price of a house. Now, what should be the price of a house? How large the house is, number of bedrooms, age of the building. The older the building, probably the lesser the value, kind of flooring, and all the kind of variables that you can think about. And you can use statistics to arrive at some kind of a decision. Now, these kind of things have been used again for decades now. So this is the famous chess match between the then world champion Garry Kasparov, and at that time the computer Deep Blue, which was developed by IBM, which went on to beat Garry Kasparov. For that time, it was very, very impressive, but I'll tell you why in the current context it's not so impressive. So if you look at the amount of effort that went into creating this computing program Deep Blue, it had 7 lakh Grandmaster games. It had 4,000 positions. It had ability to search 200 million chess positions, which is 20 crore chess positions. And a lot of grandmasters, which is 3 grandmasters plus computer programmers, worked in conjunction to create this program, which went on to beat Garry Kasparov. Now just think about it. If a lot of humans have come together, worked with automobile and have created this large truck which beats a human in a tug-of-war race, in a tug-of-war contest, would you find that impressive? No, right? Because you clearly know that machine has so much of petrol, diesel, energy built into it. It's such a large chunk of metal, and it has this huge powerful engine, and so many human beings have collaborated to create that engine. Obviously, a human is going to lose in a tug-of-war contest against a large truck. So this was something very, very similar. And again, here, I would say this is not really artificial intelligence the way we talk about it in today's context. It was largely using statistics to make decisions. So based on the 4 lakh Grandmaster games, you would figure out which move is good and which move is bad, and then you would play accordingly. So this brings us to some early AI versions. So this is a clip from the TV series Silicon Valley. Ronak, audio is linked in?
Okay, let's start with a hot dog.
Holy shit! It works!
Huzzah!
Jinyang, my beautiful little Asiatic friend, I'm going to buy you the palapa of your life. We will have 12 posts, braided palm leaves. You'll never feel exposed again.
I'm gonna be rich. Guilfoyle. Do pizza.
Let's do pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza. Hey, Zach.
Not hot dog.
So people who are laughing right now, this was the way the earliest AI used to work. It would not look at an image and say, that this is the person that, or this is the object. So for example, if we had to do a facial recognition here, then you look at Mehul and you say Mehul, not Mehul. So in this case, it is Mehul, so that is yes. Next, if you go to Hero, it will say not Mehul. It will not say Hero. So the first version of digit recognition, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it would say 0, not 0. If it is not 0, then it would say 1 or not 1. After that, it would say 2 or not 2. So it had to iterate through each possibility to really figure out which digit this is. It was again not a very, very smart way of doing things. This was the early version of AI. And these videos about digit recognition are still there on YouTube. So old black and white videos where Jan LeCun is trying to develop these early AI models for the post office. So in the post office, when the letter is there, they would try to identify the zip code, or in India's context, PIN code. Handwritten digits, they would try to read what the digits are. And this is the early version of AI. However, all that was overtaken by developments in neural nets, developments in transformers, and what are called foundation models and generative AI. These are largely developments which have happened in the last 5 to 7 years. We saw the Deep Blue example, right, where 4 lakh Grandmaster games were analyzed and things like that. Just think about this. A computer program has been only taught the rules of the game, where white plays first, the pawn can move 1 step or 2 steps in the first move, and after that it can move only 1 step. It can never go backwards. So those kind of basic rules, that's it. Nothing else is told to the computer. And the computer is told, go and play against yourself. That's all the instruction that is given to the computer. And the computer plays against itself millions and millions of games. And within a day, it starts beating within 24 hours of training, it achieved superhuman level of play. And it started beating not only the human world champions, but it started beating the best computer programs which were developed over decades by programmers. So what programmers took 20, 30 years to develop, the AI figured out how to do better than them within 24 hours and without any instruction, without any grandmaster, just by playing against itself. So this is the level of intelligence that we have come to. Again, a version of this was also responsible for beating the world champion in the game Go. So let's come to what these models are and what all this hype about large language models and generative AI is. Anyone who has used Google or using Android phones, or you know what this is, right? So autocomplete, where you type out a few things, few letters, and the computer tries to predict what you are trying to search for, or even while you are replying in an email, the computer will try to complete the sentence for you. If on WhatsApp you type happy, then it will suggest birthday, anniversary, Diwali to you as options. Same way here, sans space F, it probably thinks you are trying to search for San Francisco weather or something like that. So essentially, the same thing scaled at a much larger level is what large language models are, in a very, very simplified manner. Of course, there are a few different things. And this is the paper that really set the ball rolling. This came a few years ago, And most of these people at that time worked at Google, and they figured out a better way of doing AI where they started numbering each word in a sentence. And by doing that, they could figure out language much better than the earlier versions. So initially, the attempt was to get better at things like translation, machine translation from one language to the other. But it had many other spin-offs and side benefits, and that resulted in the state where we are at. In a very, very simplified manner, it's something like what we use to teach children. Whenever we are trying to teach children some language, we blank out a few words and we ask the kids to fill in the blanks. The foundation models essentially use the same technique. So they are given large blocks of text, and where roughly 15% of the text is blanked out, and the computers are asked to guess what those words are. Similarly, in images, they take away some proportion of the pixels and they ask the computer to fill in the blanks, as it were. So just like we saw the computer learning on its own how to play chess, similarly, the computer learns on its own the language or the image recognition, sound recognition, and all of that. And there are various companies, various entities having a go at this. This is just a partial list of the companies which are present in this segment. So today, coming back to what is intelligence, today we are at a stage where machines are able to see. Anyone who's used Google Photos or Facebook image recognition knows that they can see as well as human beings. They can read the menu or they can read the street signs. All of us have spoken to Alexa, Siri, Google, so they can do speech to text and text to speech. They can recognize music. So people who have used Spotify know about this. These three things, not so much as of now, but it's very easy to do. If you put sensors and ask them to convert the inputs into some machine understandable thing, they can probably also smell, touch, and taste. So in terms of inputs, machines are right there with humans or better. So in all of these things, first three things, they are better than human beings by various tests that have been done. Memory, our memory is very, very limited. Here you can have petabytes and exabytes of storage. So in terms of memory, they have large amounts of memory, things which we can never even hope to achieve. People who have interacted with chatbots like ChatGPT or Bing or Bard will know that they can quote-unquote understand languages. They are able to respond to us in human understandable language, and we can communicate with them in human understandable language, and not just one language, multiple languages. So if you have used Google Translate, you can interact with Google in Hindi and it can respond in English. They can process things very, very well. We'll look at some of these examples of how they are able to process stuff. Right now, they don't seem to have consciousness or ego, and that's a good thing. A lot of people are fearing what happens when they, if and when they get that. And there are robots which can fight wars, which can perform surgery and do anything that you can imagine. If you want to see some of the scary examples, you can go to YouTube and search for Boston Dynamics, and you have these very, very weird robots which are doing various kinds of things. And they don't require sleep, they don't require vacations, they never fall ill. So right now when we are in this session, we don't know what is happening in the outside world, whereas a computer will be continuously connected to the internet and to sensors and whatnot, and getting up-to-date information to do whatever needs to be done. So the question is, are machines equal in intelligence to us? Just for context, the large language models, things like ChatGPT or Bard and Bing that you see, they are trained on as much as 150,000 books. Anyone in this room who has read more than 1,000 books in lifetime? Ronak maybe. 10,000 books, Ronak? No. Yeah. So Ronak is a voracious reader. So if he has not read more than 10,000 books, then it would be difficult to find a human being who's read 150,000 books in his or her lifetime. So these models are trained on pretty much the entire published internet, all the Wikipedia, a lot of technical texts and things like that. These are certain examples. So there are 4 images on screen. Anyone notice anything weird about the images? Extra leg, right? Here, there are 3 legs. Okay, good catch. Computer hasn't caught this, but computer has caught a lot of other things. So we'll see what it has been able to catch. So computer was fed this. So this is, I think, one of the versions of GPT. And it was asked this question, do you see anything weird? And initially it did not get this, but see what it has been able to get. It sees 4 images. So it sees 4 distinct images also, although it is actually one image. It sees a woman in the blue dress with white polka dots, holding different accessories, wearing beige heels. Background is a pink wall with a geometric pattern, and the woman's face is blurred in images. A woman, blue dress, face is blurred, pink background. It gets almost everything else right. This is even more impressive. So I'll read it out for you. Don't bother reading it. The question given to GPT was, here we have a book, 9 eggs, a laptop, a bottle, and a nail. Please tell me how to stack them onto each other in a stable manner. Okay, this is not appearing anywhere else on the internet. This was not appearing anywhere else on the internet. This was a new question created for ChatGPT, and the computer was asked this question, how do you do it? Look at the answer. Place the book flat on a level surface such as a table or a floor. The book will serve as a base of the stack and provide a large and stable support. Arrange the 9 eggs in a 3x3 square on top of the book, leaving some space between them. The eggs will form a second layer and distribute the weight evenly. Make sure the eggs are not cracked or broken, and handle them gently to avoid dropping them. Place the laptop on top of the eggs with the screen facing down and the keyboard facing up. The laptop will fit snugly within the boundaries of the book and the eggs, and its flat and rigid surface will provide a stable platform for the next layer. Make sure the laptop is closed and turned off and do not press any keys or buttons. Why is it saying all this? It is understanding that the laptop, if it is powered on, could malfunction down the road or whatever. You don't want to damage the laptop. You don't want any random keys to be pressed. So it is making sure that the laptop is also not damaged in the process of your running this experiment. After that, it says place the bottle on top of the laptop with the cap facing up and the bottom facing down. The bottle will add some height and balance to the stack, and its cylindrical shape will reduce the contact area with the laptop. Make sure the bottle is empty and closed. Why is it saying empty? You don't want liquid to spill onto the laptop. It is saying make sure the bottle is empty and it's closed. Why do you want it closed? Because you want to keep a nail on top. It is not just saying keep the bottle, close the bottle. Place the nail on top of the bottle cap with the pointy end facing up and the flat end facing down. The nail will be the final and smallest object in the stack, and its sharp tip will prevent it from rolling or sliding off the bottle. Make sure the nail is clean and straight. The nail has to be straight to balance. If it's crooked, then it will fall off. And do not touch or move it. Now, anyone in this room thinks that this is not a sign of intelligence? It is almost as good as, or maybe even better than, what a human would suggest. It is said that, oh, this is okay, meaning don't place too much importance to it. Humans are creative. We can combine different fields and come up with new things. So, like whenever we talk about creativity, we think about, let's say, someone like Steve Jobs, who wandered into a calligraphy class famously and then said, okay, we should have fonts in word processors. So earlier Microsoft had very, very standardized fonts, and here you could have various fonts in all the documents and spreadsheets that you make. So that was combining calligraphy with computing. Two very, very different subjects. So we think that humans are creative, and that is a sign of intelligence, and machines can never get that right. Maybe the computers got this stacking problem right. Maybe they read some logic book on logic, etc. Let's look at this. Poetry and mathematics. Very, very distinct subjects, right? Can you write a proof of infinitude of primes with every line that rhymes? Look at the example on the left. Yes, I think I can, though it might take a clever plan. I'll start by noting Euclid's proof, which shows that primes aren't just aloof. Look at the rhyming. Proof, aloof. Assuming we have a finite list of primes and that none have been missed, multiply them all together and add 1 just to be clever. The result will be a number that has no prime factors. Oh wonder. So when we say that creativity is in the human domain, here it is combining poetry and it is combining understanding of mathematics in some form. One more. Draw Mona Lisa in the form of a Pixar movie character. It knows what Mona Lisa is. It knows what a Pixar movie character is and how to combine the two. So whether it's sound, images, text, it is already creating all of these things. So if you think that the current state of Bard, Bing, ChatGPT is where things end, you are mistaken. A lot of work is happening in this space, and look at the scale of improvements that are happening. So the earlier model BERT was of this size, GPT-2, GPT-3, GPT-4, which is already here, is somewhere here, and each new version is scaling up very, very rapidly in terms of number of parameters, number of the amount of text that is fed into, the quality of text that is fed into, the fine-tuning of the models, and the processor speeds. So chips are getting faster all the time. And not just about size, the way they are trained is also getting better all the time. And here is the fun part. When IBM created the machine Deep Blue, it was with a single purpose: create a chess playing program and defeat the world champion. That was the single point agenda. Today, when computers are being trained, they are not being trained for any specific purpose at all. They are just fed these tons and tons of data across a variety of subjects. They are told to learn on their own, just like human beings. So they are not trained for medicine. They are not trained for computer software. They are not trained for finance, law, accounting. They are fed books on all these subjects, or Wikipedia articles and PDF documents on all these subjects. And eventually they learn how to do stuff in those fields. It's something like this.
Can you fly that thing?
Not yet.
Operator.
Tank, I need a pilot program for a B-212 helicopter. Hurry. Let's go.
So we are in a situation where these are generic machines where you can get them to do pretty much whatever you want them to do. This is another version of intelligence. So human beings can reason, we can plan, solve problems, think abstractly, comprehend complex ideas, learn from experience. So if we get something wrong once, second time we try and do better and we correct ourselves. Computers are already here. The only place where they seem to be a little bit behind is in terms of how to plan things out. And work is happening on that, going on that as we speak. So what are the impacts on us as society? So at the beginning of the presentation, we saw that assuming you are a equity investor and machines have been invented and industrial revolution is about to happen, then you want to be on the right side of the trends, right? You want to probably invest in machine manufacturers, or you want to disinvest from companies or businesses which are prone to disruption because of the upcoming industrial revolution. Similarly, what are the implications here when machines can automate a lot of human thinking? The first thing is that it is very, very confusing. It is like letting a small child loose in a library. The child is going on reading each and every book that is there. You don't know what the child is understanding. You don't know what the child will answer when you ask it a question. So when all these AI developers are creating these models, they cannot debug those models. They just feed tons of text into the AI model, but they don't know what the output will be. So just to make it more vivid, let us say the AI model has read both autobiographies, The Story of My Experiments with Truth and main camp. Now, what will AI respond? The programmer does not know. Will the AI recommend the path of non-violence? Or will the AI said, let's exterminate a quarter of the human population? So you don't know what the answer will be. It's just that it's been left loose with all this data. And this person, who in fact was the professor for a lot of the leading developers today, he was the professor of Jan LeCun, who works with Meta these days. He actually quit his job at Google and is now talking to the world about dangers of AI. So he's in one camp, in the alarmist camp, as it were. Elon Musk has been talking about this for a long time, about the dangers posed by AI. And this is Jan LeCun that we spoke about. He's not so worried. He's in the optimist camp. He's saying these things don't have any consciousness. They don't understand what they are saying. It's just that text they've been fed and they just return text to you. That's all. They don't really understand what they are saying. You may think that they are intelligent, but actually they are not. So we'll not get too much into these debates, but as far as AI can generate legal briefs for you, or can take all the accounting data of a company and give the red flags to an auditor, or maybe write the audit report on its own, or maybe take a company's earnings press release plus conference call notes and create a summary for you, then why do you care whether it's intelligent, not intelligent, without getting into that debate? As long as it is doing work for you, you will focus on that. One problem is that generative AI, by definition, is supposed to generate things. Now, typically when we say generative, it means in the creative fields. Human beings understand that facts are not to be created, interpretations are to be created. But sometimes the AI programs generate the facts themselves. So, one of the lawyers who used ChatGPT to create a legal brief ended up being debarred by the court for some time, because the AI had generated fake cases which were actually not existing. And I was just playing around. This is an early version. This has changed now. So I had asked, who is Rajiv Thakkar? And it gave me this big thing. But it says I have a background in engineering, which I do not. It says I have an MBA from SPJN Institute of Management Research, which again I do not. So I'm a commerce graduate, chartered accountant, CFA. So all the other things, it generated fake answers for that. So these are examples of hallucination. But things are getting better. The developers are fixing this as we speak, and a lot of these things have gotten fixed. But whenever one is using AI output, at least at this point in time, please make sure that you verify whatever is being said with independent resources before actually using it. A lot of people fear about what happens to employment. So most of you would have heard that AI is able to write computer code now. So what happens to computer programmers, or what happens to all these employees that are employed with TCS, Infosys, Wipro and those kind of companies? Does it create mass unemployment? So there's this wonderful blog post by Benedict Evans. I would recommend people look this up. And there are only some small screenshots here, but I would recommend people look up the entire blog post, and it's quite interesting in that sense. It says that we have been automating work for 200 plus years, and we still haven't gotten to mass unemployment. And these kind of fears have existed each time something new came up. When machines came up, we thought that that will create a lot of unemployment, but that really hasn't played out that way. And it gives this thing called Jevons paradox. When something becomes cheaper, you start using more and more of it, so that the overall usage does not come down. Or even when you get efficient at using something, so let us say if cars become more fuel efficient, then we start driving bigger cars rather than consuming lesser fuel. So according to him, we should not worry too much about unemployment. So this is a very, very interesting example. In 1830, St. Petersburg, when there were no typewriters, there were people in the court whose sole job would be to read something and write that same thing on another piece of paper by hand to make a copy. There were no photocopier machines, no typewriters, no carbon copies. Now, when typewriters and carbon papers were invented, did that result in reduction of clerks employed? No. The number of clerks employed remained the same or went up because people started copying a lot more stuff because of these inventions. So he is not too pessimistic, and I think he has very, very valid points to make in the blog post. What he says is some people will lose jobs, some places will lose jobs, but overall new jobs will be created, and as a society we will not see mass unemployment. So sure, there will be hardship for a certain set of people. They will have to retrain themselves, or they will have to relocate themselves and things like that. But one should not worry too much beyond the point. So the obvious question is, what happens to IT services? For those of you who know about this website Stack Overflow, where a lot of computer programmers put small pieces of computer programs that they have written in the past, or where people ask questions and other experts provide answers, the web traffic for that has come down by probably half or something. So people have stopped going to Stack Overflow, and people are just asking either ChatGPT or the built-in tools in something like VS Code and all of that. So these AI tools have become very, very effective at writing computer code. So some of the industry leaders have been asked about this. What they said is that the productivity has gone up by 50-60%. So people take maybe half the time as to what they would take earlier in terms of writing a piece of code. What that means is that the senior programmers can get more done, and the entry-level positions will be at somewhat of a threat, because then for the very, very basic computer programming thing, you don't need a engineering graduate. You can probably just ask the AI tool to do it for you, and one person can do the work of 2 or 3 people. So seniors will be in more demand because they will be far more productive, and junior level employment could see some downturn. So that was the reaction of some of the industry leaders. But overall, even they were of the view that demand will pick up far more, since costs will come down, and overall revenue, overall demand will not come down. Ronak did a full 1-hour talk on how to use AI for editing photos or videos and things like that. This was at Flame University. Maybe he can cover some of this down the road. But you would have read in the news that some of the workers in Hollywood had gone on strike because they were fearing job losses or difficulty because of AI coming in. And it's not a very black and white kind of scenario. AI cannot do things end to end, but it can surely reduce some of the work. And in fact, even for some of the things, you may not actually require human models. The AI can actually create generated images of human beings, and you can clothe those generated images in whatever fashion accessories that you want and stuff like that. Shekhar Kapoor, the film director in India who created the movie Masoom many decades back, he asked the generative tools to write a script for a sequel to Masoom. And he said that although the script generated was not what I would write, but it was nevertheless impressive. So he has written a note about this, and it made for quite a bit of interesting reading. So it's not just in very, very simple things, but even in things like writing a script for a movie, you could have AI write those kind of things. One of our friends, Kuntal, has founded this company called Needle.ai, which is about using AI tools in the investment field. So the last quarterly result of HDFC Asset Management Company Limited, so he just gave a link to the earnings call transcript, and the summary was generated by AI end to end. And it also gave links so that you can verify what is being said here. So now you have these things where you can upload a PDF of maybe 200 pages and the AI will summarize the key points for you. So this is in the case of a company earnings call transcript, but it could also be for, let's say, a legal document. Let us say your supplier has sent you a draft of a agreement that you have to sign. Now you can upload it and ask AI to highlight the key points that are adverse to you, and it can do it for you. So a lot of things which would take a lot of time earlier can now be done very, very quickly. Reading X-rays or reading retinal scans and all, already AI is doing it far better than trained doctors. So people like me who wear eyeglasses, earlier you had to go to an optician where they would give you a dark black metal frame and they would put in the lens one by one in your eye, and you had to read out a chart, and then they would give you your prescription numbers. These days you just go to an optician or even to a doctor and you place your chin in front of a machine, and then an image will focus in and out, a landscape typically, and they'll give you a printout. This is your prescription. So what used to take a lot of time earlier and a trained doctor to give you your prescription, machines can do it, and this has been around for a lot of time. But increasingly, even things like diagnosing diabetic retinopathy or X-ray or something like that, the machines are able to do far better than human trained doctors. We mentioned legal services. Again, AI can be used to either summarize agreements or to generate agreements based on the prompts that you have given. Probably you can upload a trial balance and balance sheet, P&L, cash flows, and or maybe the entire raw entries into the system, and it will generate red flags for you. So it can do at a scale where human accountants or auditors cannot find the mistakes, and computers will be able to do it better. People who use Microsoft Excel will see these things where the Excel will, or even Google Sheets, the program offers you to help you visualize the data that is there on the spreadsheet. So let us say you have a very large spreadsheet with various cities and the sales in various cities, sales through various channels, physical store, e-commerce, the sales by various products, and you want help in terms of trying to visualize the data, the computer can do it for you. So Google's subsidiary Waymo is already operational in 4 US cities: San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, Arizona, and Austin, Texas. And you can, sorry for that, I have a sore throat. So already in 4 cities, you have these robo taxis where, like a Uber, you can hail a car. The car will come to where you are standing. It will take you to your destination, but there will be no driver inside. This is today. This is not something futuristic. This is already here. Now imagine this rolling out all over US or all over the world eventually. This reduces the need for drivers. It reduces accidents because computers make far less mistakes as compared to human drivers. It reduces accidents, so it reduces the insurance premiums. And what happens to all the drivers? What happens to all the insurance companies? So it's very, very early days as of now in terms of the developments in the field of AI. But these developments will keep happening. And over a period of time, we'll start seeing the impact on the human world and on the investment world. Industrial Revolution first phase took 80 years. Even if this does not take that long, it may maybe happen over 20, 25 years. But the impact is real, and one will need to keep watching this space as to how things are panning out. These are not stock tips. These are just some of the companies that have been in the news because of developments in AI. So these are the usual suspects, people who either design chips or manufacture chips, or who are making machines for manufacturing chips, the companies which have generated the models, or companies which are in the cloud computing space. Ronak will talk about some of these other industries where developments are happening. So right now there are more questions than answers. Many a times it will be easier to identify companies that will lose out because of AI rather than identifying the companies that will be winners. But it will help to keep a close watch on this space as we go along. So Charlie Munger has said this in a very, very different context. He was talking about interest rates and money printing and all of that. But I think the same statement applies to AI as well. If you're not a little confused by what is going on, you don't understand it. We are in uncharted territory. So this is what I wanted to talk about. Happy to take questions or any comment that you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajiv, for a very interesting presentation. So I am asking this in half jest. Have you asked ChatGPT what's the future of human?
Yes. Lot of people have asked, and it generates all kinds of answers. So typically it says that I'm a large language model. I can only answer in text, and humans are fine and things like that. So, but probably that's what has been tweaked by all the developers. So interestingly, all of the publicly available interfaces, they have these filters in place so that the AI does not give illegal answers or does not give you harmful suggestions and things like that. So they are, at least the public versions are not completely let loose, and sometimes they just go haywire. So early versions of ChatGPT and early versions of Bing were saying that I will not harm you if you don't harm me and things like that. There were situations where the computer was threatening the user and things like that. So sometimes they got into dispute about what year it is currently. So the human was saying we are in 2023 and the computer would argue no, we are in 2019 and things like that. But the public versions are filtered not to give you illegal answers. So if you ask these models, tell me how to create a nuclear bomb, they will not tell you, or tell me how to murder 50 people. It will not tell you. It will filter those out as being harmful and illegal and things like that. So we don't know the real answer to that.
So I've been using ChatGPT 3, and I think ChatGPT 4 is still a paid version and is slightly expensive. So I've experimented, and I think I would encourage everybody to try it. And it has done some fantastic work. Like what you would give to a assistant, like write a letter, or like in my building, I've joined the management committee. So I asked. So when we got elected, I asked the ChatGPT to write a letter of announcement, welcome, thanking the previous committee, and it wrote a beautiful letter. I had to edit a little bit of it. Then I've asked it to design a pet policy, and I just always write, for a large residential building in Mumbai, etc. It gives a fantastic output. So a lot of stuff which will take days or months to do, it can do. Then of course you can apply your own mind and tweak it. But it's quite useful. And I've used it in many fields. But only thing it doesn't give me is an answer to my stocks to invest in yet.
So people who are interested in using GPT-4 can indirectly use it by using Bing Chat, which is Microsoft's chat. So if you go to Microsoft's Edge browser and use Bing Chat, at the back end they use GPT-4. So you can probably get better outcomes than using ChatGPT 3.5, which is the public version. And also Bing Chat will have some internet connection in terms of the live data and all that, whereas ChatGPT will have a date cutoff. It will not have context of the current events and things like that. So using either Bing Chat or Bard from Google. So Microsoft and Google are offering these two things. In both cases, you can have combination of generative AI plus the current data. So to that extent, it is a bit more helpful.
You tried to do any specific company research, and you identify the company and ask it to analyze it and forecast a little bit?
So forecasting and all, not yet, but the summarization aspect is well entrenched. So there are tools which, let us say you want to go through all conference calls across all listed companies and figure out what they are talking about the threat of Amazon. So let us say Amazon will be spoken about in a clothing retailer company, in a grocery retailer. So Amazon may be discussed in Walmart's conference call or in Zara's conference call, or it could be discussed in Costco's conference call. So you don't want to go to each company and see whether it has been discussed or not. So these tools can already summarize sentiment or already tell you what other companies are doing. So it can tell you 43 companies discussed Amazon in the latest conference call. 30 of them felt that it was a threat to their business. Remaining were confident in their ability to compete effectively or so, whatever. So those kind of things are already being used. I gave an example of a summarization of the quarterly conference call. So those kind of things are already happening.
You can't ask it to, for example, correlate GDP growth or 3-4 more parameters with the growth of, let's say, SDFC Bank and forecast the future trajectory or scenarios. It can't do that kind of.
Yeah, we haven't used it. I don't know whether other people are doing that kind of stuff or not. Rukun, anything to say there?
So, if you feed it data, it can do that. If you have that hypothesis that you'll get that correlation matters, and if you just give it data that this is the GDP historically, this is SDFC Bank's revenue, create a model on this and output, it will give that to you. So that it can do that, provided you believe that the output or that hypothesis is right.
That's lots of assistance to the artificial intelligence. Anyway, thanks. Thank you for the presentation.
Thanks.
Yeah, so more or less in all use cases, that general goal has to come from you. It will help you execute it, but it will not. It's not typically great at finding the goal itself.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So, very interesting presentation. Thank you. I have a question about, or a point rather, about hallucinations, the point that you mentioned. Very interesting, actually, because, I mean, we can call it hallucinations, but at the end of the day, they are mistakes. I mean, some mistake that computer program has made. Now, the question I have is that in this specific case, which is about your profile that you generated, do we have enough information to know whether the reason why it pointed out that Rajiv Thakkar is an engineer and from SPGen is because there is another Rajiv Thakkar who possibly is, or is it just a complete figment of its imagination? Because if it's the latter, then it's okay to have a mistake like this. But when the stakes are very high, and again, mistakes at least in the computing world, they have been reduced, but complete elimination has not happened. So what kind of error is this? Is this more too much data and therefore some error, or?
So it's a fabulous question, and it will be very, very useful for everyone here to understand what generative AI is and what it isn't. It clearly isn't database lookup. It's not like a Wikipedia entry that you, or a search engine where you go to a source document and see it. Probably in its own wisdom, it has figured out that most people who are in this field are engineers and are MBAs. Just like SAN space F, it tried to guess San Francisco weather and San Francisco whatever, all the other things. Same way here, it is trying to guess what this person's qualification will be. It is not taking data from PPFS website or from Institute of Chartered Accountants or anything. It's not a database lookup.
It's using probabilities in some way.
It's using probabilities. So, same way, it is sometimes not good at math. Now, typically we would think that computers would be very, very good at math. Sometimes even it gets basic arithmetic wrong if you complicate the question enough. So, probably what needs to happen is when companies like Microsoft and Google are bringing it to the consumer interface, it needs to know that this is something which has to be logically looked up. This is something which has to be calculated, and this is something where you need generative AI, and then give you a combined answer. So, for example, if you ask Google, the search engine, the fare from here to Delhi, it will look up the actual airfares on various airline websites, on aggregators like MakeMyTrip and so on. Whereas a generative AI will look at the past history and will try and guess what the airfare from here to there is. So both are very, very different approaches to the same thing. Rukun, you want to?
Yeah. So that problem is being addressed by what Rajiv said. So some tools, what they're doing is they're using that illustrate with a quote or provide your sources. So in that case, it provides you with a source from where it is getting the data. Similarly, as he gave an example that it's not good at math, but you have a plugin in there called MATLAB. You tell it, I want to solve this problem using MATLAB, and it can do it. So by combining these different tools, the generative AI, I think that hallucination problem is somewhat getting resolved.
See, okay, so they actually just follows up into another question I have, which is actually, it again came out of, so if we are saying that it's probabilistic to some extent, I mean, at least, see, all the examples that we are talking about in terms of AI, maybe for ease of understanding for us is text and, text input, poems or creating, nice letters of announcements and stuff like that. But we don't know the actual use cases. I mean, we know, but we are not able to, I mean, there must be hundreds and thousands of actual use cases where AI is being used at the back end, which is not visible to people like us in this fashion. I'm just giving a hypothetical example, of driverless cars that we're talking about. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that if there are 1 million driverless cars on the road and 1 million manually driven cars on the road, the possibilities of accidents in driverless cars at a universe level may be lower. But the point is there are ethical aspects also, which means that today there is the fear of the law, there is, actions that can be taken, retributive actions that can be taken on a driver or a human driver, whereas those things are not there. So the question I'm coming to is, when the stakes get too high, in a probabilistic universe, it's great to say that at an overall level the world will be better, but there will be some impacts which may not be too hard to. So is there some so there are ethical aspects to AI. So I'm saying, is there some work that's happening there which we can talk about?
So autopilot in planes, right? Planes are capable of flying themselves for a while now. They are also capable of takeoff and landing to some extent, but you still have a pilot and a co-pilot in large aircraft as fallback and things like that. So I think for some time you'll have these kill switches and you'll have human oversight, and for a very, very long period of time, you'll not simply hand over everything to AI. There will be some proportion of humans which will be, let us say, in case of autonomous vehicles or driverless cars, there may be one human for every 20 autonomous vehicles on the road. So who sees that things are going proper and has probably a kill switch where he can bring the vehicle to a halt in case required. Maybe those kind of things will be there, or law will mandate some of these things. But over a period of time, as these things get better, so see again, is this retina scan diabetic or non-diabetic, right? Now, there are serious health implications, both for false positives and for false negatives. But a human can also make a mistake, same way that a computer can make a mistake. Now, if computer is getting it right 99% of the time, over millions of data points, and if humans are getting it 97% right, who will you trust more? Even though that 1% error rate will be there. In a car accident involving autonomous vehicles, there can be fatalities, but so is the case with human accidents. Now, as long as the autonomous vehicles are doing it at far lower rate per million miles driven or something like that, then why not?
So, just to add to it, the question you are raising is extremely pertinent and a lot of research is happening. So, there's a book by Brian Christian called The Alignment Problem. This is actually the problem you are stating is an alignment of values between humans and the alignment of machines. So what is more important? A false positive is more important to you or a false negative? And how do you teach the machine that for me, false positive is more important rather than false negative? So all these kind of questions are being asked and research is happening. So that book details a lot of this.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. So in the earlier part of your presentation, when you said that some 4 lakh games were loaded to beat this Grandmaster, similarly in this Chat GPT, I'm sure there would be some training data which would be loaded into it, and then make it more better and better. So, and this training data is very expensive, so have you come across any companies which provide this data as a service to players like ChatGPT who have this neural network and decision trees, and then they provide the data in a structured way so that they just focus on the core of the neural network rather than getting the data. So that was the question.
Yeah, so effectively they were given, and so they are quite secretive about what the training data is, and each organization will have some variant of this. I gave a data point, roughly 150,000 books equivalent data was there for the current versions or the previous one. The newer ones will have probably even more. They've used the entire public internet that almost everybody uses, all the Wikipedia, all the outside of copyright books. There are some websites which use even copyrighted books where they've just taken the electronic version and dumped it into one large file, and they are offering it for free to open source AI models, which would be in some jurisdictions illegal to use copyrighted material to train the AI models. But all of this is a gray area. So far, I don't think any company has that advantage saying, I have this training data which I'll sell to companies like OpenAI or Meta or Alphabet or something like that. They have their own sources of data.
Thank you.
I think I have come after a long time and very interesting. So I want to ask you whether AI tomorrow can give me a combination of various technical analysis. Is it possible? Like if they can do it for chess.
They can. They can.
But is it available currently?
So I am not someone who tracks technical analysis so much, but maybe there is. Automated?
No, I'm not aware of a tool that does it, but it's definitely possible.
It's among the simpler things to do.
Yeah.
So currently, suppose if I'm trading through technicals, I have various things. So either I read it myself, then I will not be able to read more than 3 or 4 signals or 2 or 3 patterns. Or I will ask 10 people and I will generate my own signals and trade accordingly. But if I know these are 10 best signals.
Sir, let me go back a step. What you are asking for does not actually even need AI. What you are saying is technical analysis is mostly rule-based, right? So let us say if the stock price moves above some moving average, it's a buy signal. If it falls below, it's a sell signal. If RSI is this, then it's overbought. If it is this, it is oversold. For that, you don't need AI. For that, you need simple instructions to the computer, which it will calculate, and it can even trade on your behalf. Actually, those are algorithmic trades, which have been around for a long period of time.
People are trading algorithmically, but for a general person, who is trading only technicals and he doesn't have algo at his disposal, he doesn't have that.
Algo will be cheaper than AI. So, Algo as a subscription, there are various people who provide these things or various brokerage websites which provide rule-based transactions. Algos will be cheaper, and this is actually in the domain of algorithm. You don't actually need AI for this.
We'll take one last question.
Yeah, just taking on from what you said earlier in the presentation, is there a way or a software currently to, find out red flags from a fundamental analysis point of view?
I'm sure there are. So, it's early days right now. So, internally, for example, Rukun has created something like a social graph for all the key managerial personnel, directors, auditors, and all of that. So, I'm sure there are some of these things which can be found out.
Are they in the public domain? Would you know of it? I mean, say scanning through annual reports or...
See, it's early days yet. One. Number two, if someone actually has done a lot of work on this, they will not put it out in the public domain. They'll use it for their own profitable transaction, keep it proprietary. But it's a thing which can be done. I don't see why it will not find increased use as we go along.
So there are these con call notes on screener.in. Is that also an example of, say AI using, or scanning through con calls or presentations and, filtering out the data?
Yes.
It is, right?
Great. Thank you so much.
Whenever things got rough, I always remember what my father used to say.
Running a business does test a man, my son. There are ups and downs, glorious highs, and sometimes a low that leaves you feeling defeated.
The character of a man and the character of a business are not very different, are they?
Yes. But when the chips are down, we must stand up, dust ourselves off, and motor on.
Volatility. It's a funny thing. It makes you question yourself and wonder if you've made all the right decisions.
Sure, you can question some of your decisions, but stay steadfast on your goals.
Dad always said, there are no shortcuts and no quick profits.
There are no free lunches, are there? There is only one
right way.
At PPFAS, we think like Rahul and his father. That volatility is a fact of running a business. And buying equity shares is like owning a part of that business. We use value investing principles to manage your money. This means we invest in the right businesses at reasonable prices and for a longer term.
PPFAS Mutual Fund. There's only one right way. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.